Hey everybody, it's Reggie with Lawyer Interviews. Today we are talking with Kristen, who is out of the Twin Cities and I think specifically Minneapolis. Hi, Kristen.
Hello.
It's so nice to have you. And also because you and I share some, former connections with where we went to law school.
Yes, the same school. Although after the merger, we don't know if it's the same school, right?
That's true. So background for people watching, Kristen's school and my school, they were separate years ago. And then when was it? It was
I think it was like 1 to 2 years after I graduated. So I bet it was 2015 that they merged.
they merged and now they're the same school. So we like now have the same alma mater, I guess.
Yes.
So it's very, very cool.
Yes.
Well, Kristen, we're so excited to talk to you today, and especially because of your mission and your Instagram account, which I think is so really cool because you have this unique perspective of someone who worked as an associate and then switched into your own business, and you are the boss now. And so
Yes.
I'd love to talk to you about your mission on Instagram and the message you're trying to get out to other associates who are maybe starting or a few years out.
Yes. So my mission through Lure of Law. So Lure of Law is my new business. I own and operate the law office of Kristen Gyolai in addition to Lure of Law. So my law office, I represent injured workers and workers' compensation claims. I've been doing that ever since I graduated law school, but for the first 5 years of my career, it was for someone else. So I was an associate working in a law firm, and I got to the point where I just kind of felt like I knew what I was doing. I was in my groove. I was playing a mentoring role to all the other attorneys that were working at the firm. And I just thought the logical next step is for me to do this on my own. So I made that leap in 2018.
Okay.
When I did that, there were so many people who came out of the woodwork to support me. So there were so many people who were just incredibly supportive and getting me launched and, encouraging me, providing me really practical advice on how to do it. But then after that, I got this flood of calls from, former colleagues or former associates, just, former law school classmates like, you went out on your own? How'd you do that? Can I pick your brain about that? And I was playing this mentoring role over and over and over again for individuals, which I love. I love sharing information. And I'm so happy as a solo practitioner that I think, look, if I can get this secret out there, how happy I am and how doable this is, I'm going to do it. But the more often I played that mentoring role, the more I realized there was a real need for somebody to be an encourager and somebody to mentor associates as they're thinking about going out on their own. So that's the whole mission through Lure of Law is really encouragement and practical tools for, ending the grind, I say. So that's kind of identifying where you're unhappy in your current role,
Mhm.
developing an exit plan,
Uh-huh.
and then starting your firm. So that's all the launch materials, that's all the launch plan, everything that goes into launching a new law firm.
That's fantastic. And so have you created your system, I guess, is based off of your experience or others, or how did you come up with formula or the type of mentoring advice that you offer? Is it based on you or others, or is it a mix?
Yeah, it's based on my real world experience. So I don't pretend that I am necessarily an expert in starting a law firm. I have done it and I have done it successfully. And I can share with you the mistakes I've made and then also what I've done right. And so that's the mission. And so as Lure of Law grows, of course, I want to become a subject matter expert in, starting law firms. And I think I'm close to there. But I right now, it's really based on my personal experience and then others that I've mentored and other people that have mentored me.
Very interesting. And when you're talking about people that reach out and we're talking about associates, do you find that there's like a number of years out that associates get when they really start contemplating going on their own?
Yeah, you know what? I think that sweet spot is somewhere between like 5 and 10 years after law school, when they've been in like a certain area of law. That's kind of when I feel like people get really comfortable at what they're doing, or they've got enough. They've got the subject matter down, and the logical next step after you've mastered that skill, or that knowledge base, is like, okay, how can I challenge myself further? And what could I be doing better in a different environment? And so that's when I think people really start kind of just falling into that, um, that desire for
Yeah.
more, for better. But what I am seeing too, because there has been a huge influx in individuals starting firms straight out of law school. I don't think I could have done that, but I think that there is a bigger trend towards that right now. And I support those individuals in those efforts for sure. But I think that's what we're going to be seeing, and what we've been seeing in the past, 2 years or so, and what we're going to be seeing more and more now.
Absolutely. And I think that the situation with where law is right now, because of, unfortunately, the pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, fortunately and unfortunately, because things are more remote, I think that
Yes.
it's given associates and people who are fresh out an opportunity to kind of get out on their own, but an easier way, because they don't necessarily have to have like this base office.
Yes,
Have
yes. It's
you
less
seen a difference
intimidating, I
with that?
think.
Oh, sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I think it's less intimidating to venture out into a law firm startup when the virtual setup or the virtual law office is so much more widely acceptable by clients, by peers, by the courts. I mean, people understand that almost the entire American workforce found a way to work at home, and not necessarily the entire, but I mean, a lot of
Yeah,
people learned to work at home, and it's just more widely accepted. And because you don't have those overhead costs of a physical space, of certain types of equipment, like those industrial sized copiers and
yeah.
scanners, and it's just like, it's, why not try it, and what's the true failure? Is it the law firm not working out, or is it never trying it? In my mind, it's never trying it, never taking that leap and seeing if it could work. Because I think back to where I was when I was getting ready to put in my notice, when I was really committing to going out on my own. And the one thing that was going to hold me back was fear. I was
Yeah.
so fearful about it working out. And I just can't believe that that's what could have held me back from this life I live now, is fear. So really, through Lure of Law, it's just encouraging. It's just being a source of light, inspiration, and mentorship to individuals who want to get out and at least try it.
Absolutely. And I'd love for you to also share maybe what is like the biggest pros, or one or two or three, of having your own firm for you. What was like the biggest changes that are a positive, force in your life from getting that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So there's a number of them. There's an exercise that I did right before I was going out on my own too. And I made this list of, how am I going to practice law differently at my firm? Because that was a really high priority for me. I got to the point where I was at a high volume firm, which gives you amazing experience that I do not take for granted. And I loved. But I got to the point where I didn't feel like I had to spread myself so thin amongst my clients that I just wasn't giving them the level of service that I wanted to. And so, number one, to answer your question, would be a higher level of client service. So I think my clients are getting the best of me. I
Yes.
also think that because I have more control over my schedule, my family is getting the best of me. I am not putting in the, disgusting amount of hours that I had to at the firm. And then I think that the third thing is that, I'm getting the best of me. I have something left in my tank after I have given my all to my clients, given my all to my family. I still have time for myself. So, freedom, flexibility, and just a better overall client experience. I also believe that I believe that the sky is the limit with income potential for solo practitioners. And I think, if you're doing it right, if you're setting goals, if you have the right tools, if you have the right resources, which is all, what I want to help people have when they launch their firms, the sky's the limit. So, that steady paycheck, I get that it feels good and it's consistent, and, getting to that 6-figure salary feels great, but it's like, you can do that by yourself. The trade-off is not less money necessarily. It could be exponentially more. You just have to be willing to take that risk.
Right. And I think it's really cool too that you were mentioning that, you had all these people reach out and congratulate you and everything, but law schools, I think, do a terrible job of setting up lawyers for their own practice. I think that there are not a lot of great mentors out there that do a good job either. So what is like a tool or advice that you could give us, or, the viewers, to give them the courage to go ahead and do it, because it is a little scary, right?
Yes. I think you're right about, the law school is not necessarily preparing lawyers for practice, the business of law. Although you and I, the last time we spoke about our alma mater, is now teaching a class that's called The Business of Law, and it is about operating a business, which is great. And I just want to learn more and more about that and hopefully teach it someday, because that's just me geeking out over everything I love. But then too, the mentors that are out there, they're people who will help you grow a firm, scale a firm, make 7 figures. But who's helping you to make the transition from A to be, from associate to law firm owner. And so my biggest piece of advice is, that's a tough one. What is the best? I think what I would go back to is just really identifying what your current dissatisfactions are in your practice. So again, that's like stopping the grind. Like, what is it that you don't like about your life and your practice right now? And could you fix that by creating your own firm? Because I'm not naive enough to think that this is the answer for all lawyers. Like, what's going to make you happy, what's going to make you money is starting your own firm. That's not the case for everybody. But I think for individuals who have it on their heart and on their minds that, hey, maybe I could create something better, what you need to do is you need to sit down and figure out what you don't like and how you'd make it better. And then it's just about, building.
Absolutely. And I think it also takes, you already mentioned too, like, don't let fear hold you back. I think it takes an incredible amount of courage to go out on your own and to figure that out. And so I think it's so neat that you have this other business too, where you can mentor and be like the next gen. And, especially for a woman in business too, I love that as well, that, I'm sure. So are you finding like a lot of women reaching out?
Oh, yes.
Do you have a more or less demographic? I'm just curious.
Yeah. So I would say that I think that the individuals that I'm interacting the most with are probably women. The brand, the Lure of Law brand, is definitely more feminine, and that's on purpose because my workers' compensation law practice, it's kind of rigid. I'm representing blue collar individuals. It's more men than women, and I just don't get that opportunity for like creativity and that more feminine touch. So that was really by design when I started Lure of Law. I just did want it to be a lot more touchy-feely, a lot more feminine. And so I think it does resonate maybe a little bit more with women, which I'm fine with, because I'm all about women in positions of power and women as business owners. And that is probably my ideal demographic, but of course not to the detriment of any males who are, wanting to start their own law firms. And I would say out of the individuals that I've mentored so far, like actually engaged in that mentoring relationship with, the most profound one that I had was a group of 3 male attorneys who we worked with each other at our former firm. And so I went out on my own first. They went out on their own just within the past year. And so they reached out to me to say, you did it right. You were well respected at the firm after you left, and we want to know what's your playbook. And so I spent a ton of time helping those 3 individuals. And like I said, they were men, and that was just awesome. And
that's amazing. That's fantastic. Yeah. Well, so that's interesting too. So it's not necessarily just individuals. It can be a group of individuals that you're helping to start something, and how does that work with, mentoring, different people at the same time for one firm? How did
You
you
know,
find that?
that was an interesting experience because I think, my mission is more so like solo practitioners because that's what I am and that's where my experience lies. So I didn't get into the nitty-gritty of them with like, any of their partnership terms or anything like that, but it was more so, like putting in notice, developing that exit plan,
Mhm.
which forms you have to file and all of that stuff. And it was just fun because I had that pre-existing relationship with those individuals. We had so many common experiences. And so it would definitely have to be the right individuals to continue doing like those, firm setups where it's more than
Right.
one individual. It's definitely like more geared towards a solo practitioner.
Very cool. I mean, and of course, solo practitioners can always hire people later on once they've got the shop set up
Exactly.
and figure that out. Hire
Exactly.
the law clerk interns and then
Yes. And the paralegals and yeah, absolutely.
So what's and I'd also love to like hear too, what some of the struggles with
Mhm.
what you found that was really really hard going out on your own, because I'm sure it was not all easy at
Mm,
all, right?
yeah.
What was something very hard that you had to learn when you went out
So
on?
I started with 0 staff. So I can remember the very first day of the law office of Kristen Gyolai sitting on the floor of my office, which was my home office, and being like, I need to figure out how to print a label on this printer. And I'm like smacking the printer and I'm like Googling how to, and I'm like, I have relied on a paralegal to print my labels. Like I am now the everything. So
Right,
I need to figure out this just as much as I need to figure out where my next client is coming from. I need to figure out, I'm the one who figures out the printer jams. Like,
right.
so playing all of those roles, it was a lot to get used to. I
Hmm.
would say the other thing was just like forward momentum, because to make something like this work, you have to be willing to put in work when there's not motivation there,
Hmm.
when things don't seem to be working, when you don't seem to be seeing results. You have to keep moving. And I just remember days where I felt so discouraged that the law firm wasn't going to work out. And I would do something as simple as send a thank you note to somebody who supported me, or reach out to somebody on social media, make a social media post, or, call a former client and just, tell them, here's what I'm doing. Maybe they have it in their heart to, keep me in mind if they hear of somebody else who needs help, and just taking those tiny, tiny steps forward when all you want to do is curl up in a ball and go apply for a job and have somebody else make those tough decisions
Right.
is incredible. And that's exactly why you need an encourager. That's exactly why Lure of Law exists, is because it can work.
Mhm.
You just gotta keep moving
Keep
forward.
moving forward. Absolutely. Well, and again, forward momentum is and confidence, I'm sure,
Yes.
in yourself and your abilities, because I mean, as you mentioned earlier, I don't think there's like a necessarily like a perfect amount of years you can be out to where
Right.
you're comfortable. I mean, I'm sure there are people comfortable right off and
Hmm.
some that don't get comfortable for a decade. And
Yeah.
what would you say associates who maybe in the future have the idea they want to break off, what really should they be focusing on in their firms now that can help them go out on their own in the future?
I really think that the key to that is developing a network. And I know that the latest interview that you did, I just saw the clip. I can't remember who you just interviewed, but I know that was one of her like primary tips to younger practitioners was building your network. And I don't mean to sound like a broken record and just say exactly what she said, but that was so key to me. When I had my own referral sources coming in, when I had people, other practitioners, opposing counsel, just who really respected me and could compliment me, other associates who looked up to me, when my network was just like so supportive of me, that's really when I had like courage, and when I really realized how possible it was, because there were going to be people to support me along the way.
Mhm.
So I would say building your network. I would say getting involved in legal organizations that align with the type of law you're practicing. I would say developing your referral sources. I would say providing really excellent client service to your current clients, so that if your state's ethical rules allow, that you can take those with you if you do put in notice. or that, even those ones that you can't take with you, they'll still keep you in mind and, still
Right.
think of you in the future if they know of somebody. Um, yeah, I think that networking is
Killed
just,
it.
I think it's incredibly important. And I had a good network when I left, but then my first year in business as the law office of Kristen Gyolai, I really looked at my primary objective as networking,
Networking.
building it up, contacting referral sources, developing those relationships for, solid leads consistently coming in, and just, casting that wide net of who is the most helpful to this business, to building this business,
Mhm.
beyond me.
Right, right. And would you say that, I mean, the referral network, I mean, it sounds like it's really paid off in client referrals. Did you do any like independent advertising too, or was it more just word of mouth and referrals?
Yes, I think that that's one of the best kept secrets is that you do not need to be spending hundreds of thousands of
Right.
dollars on paid marketing efforts. I think that you can build, a six-figure business with word of mouth referrals. If you
Absolutely.
have, the right referral sources, whether those be other attorneys who practice other areas of law, whether those be other small business owners, whether those be current and existing current existing clients and their networks, it's totally and completely possible.
I love that. And I think it's neat too to see a difference. I think the law firms in general, I think the big firms are seeing it too, but the work life, balance that we all try to chase, that I don't think anyone has the perfect answer because it's so individualized. But on top of that, I think people have kind of leaned towards maybe the smaller firms, or I don't think the bigger firms are as big as they used to be. I think that they're starting to downsize, and I think that people are wanting the boutique firms. What's your experience and what you're seeing in the trends? I mean, are you seeing that as well, or something different?
Oh, that's a really a good question. Are the big firms getting smaller? I have such a bias towards the smaller firms just because I think that the client is the one who benefits so much from, that more individualized service. There are certainly cases that I'm never going to be able to take on because I'm one person. So I'm not going to be doing class action work. I'm not going to be doing, some of those cases that maybe are always going to lie with those big firms. But yeah, I do think people want that more individualized experience. And I do think that you want to know, like, and trust who you're working with. And you can't always get that out of that corporate feel. I also think that people don't look to that big office building with the 60 suits in desks, beautiful conference room as a sign of success, a sign of trustworthiness. Because again, what we learned in the past 2 years is I can be sitting on my couch and I can be a great lawyer to you. The judge doesn't know I'm on my couch because I can put a Zoom screen behind me. And, you just don't need what people once thought you did.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember during the pandemic, I mean, I held two full arbitrations. One was seated in Singapore. The other one was seated in Salt Lake City. And
Yeah.
from my office. And
Yes.
it was just the oddest thing, but it worked great.
That's
It was
awesome.
actually very, very thorough, but
Yes.
it was just kind of like this
And I bet you
idea
felt
of
great.
law is so different.
Yeah.
So I love it. And I think it does tend to help the not younger, but the newer, attorneys out there, because they are starting on their own. So I think it's a
Yeah.
really cool opportunity.
I think those are the ones that adjusted the best to all the changes we had to make throughout the pandemic too, because we were comfortable with technology. We understood, the the idea that some people felt like, if I can't go to the office and look in my file, how am I going to have my information? Whereas I'm like completely paperless, have been since day one, and I'm like, why couldn't I work without, this laptop? Like
Right.
this is all I need. And so, just adjusting to those new realities, I think was easier for the younger generation, and just, us being more adaptable maybe.
Absolutely. Well, and I think it's neat too that, you mentioned earlier, the word of mouth, but also you don't need to spend a lot on advertising. But then you've also talking about networking. Well, what better way? You've got social networking, right? So how
Yeah.
instrumental has like Instagram or, these social media apps been on your practice, or both businesses, I guess?
Yeah. So for Lure of Law, it's everything because that's how I've built, a community. So with Lure of Law, the way that I have reached out to other attorneys, the way that I have, just built like, I think that the trendy word is like my tribe,
Right.
is through Instagram and driving traffic to my website. With my law office, it is different because my ideal client is not on, Instagram, and my ideal client isn't generally on Facebook either, or LinkedIn. My ideal client is, like I said, a middle-aged man in the trades. That's kind of just who I represent time and time again in my workers' compensation practice. And so the way that I use social media is to stay top of mind for my referral sources. And so I am friends with a lot of my referral sources on Facebook, and the updates that I post on there just remind them, what I'm doing, that I accept workers' compensation referrals, that I provide good service, and it keeps me top of mind for those individuals so that when they get a call from a prospective client, they will in fact send them to me. And that's kind of what my secret has been to utilizing social media very differently in my two businesses. In my law office, because my ideal client is very different than in Lure of Law.
Right. And I think that's such an interesting and very cool piece of advice, because not your clientele may not be this younger generation on, we've talked a lot on this show about the great parts of social media, but not every client is going to be on social media. I mean, that's the truth.
Right. Yeah.
So you do that so that your network can also help bring them in, because it is the case. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and giving us like these little like tips and everything. I'd love to let people know where they can find you, but first, I want to play a couple little games.
Oh, yay!
All right. Have you ever played Shag, Marry, Kill?
Oh no.
Okay. Well, I'm going to give you 3 things, and you've got to shag one.
Okay.
You get to marry one, and you have to kill the other. Okay.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
So in order of preference. Okay. I'm going to give you 3, and I'm going to give you law subjects first.
Oh.
Okay. Here we go. Shag, marry, kill. Civ Pro, contracts, and torts.
Okay.
Which one are you going to shag? Which one are you going to marry? Which one are you going to kill?
I'm going to marry torts.
Okay.
I'm going to it's really close between Civ Pro and I'm going to kill contracts. I'm going to shag Civ Pro.
All right. I mean, you can marry them. I mean, it's like, you can marry all of them. I mean, really, they're all married to law, right?
Yeah.
Well, very fun. And thank you again, Kristen, for joining us, and let people know, please, where they can find, Lure of Law, and then also your practice. If you, let us know your handle.
Yes. So, the Law Office of Kristen Gyolai is on Facebook. So there's just a page, Law Office of Kristen Gyolai. The website is kristingyolai.com. And then Lure of Law, the website is lureoflaw.com. And on social media, just Lure of Law.
Perfect. Well, and I've got one more question for you. And this is a complete Minnesota-based question. But have you had a good Juicy Lucy? And do you have a preference of the best Juicy Lucy's?
Oh my gosh, this is so embarrassing. But no, I have not had one. I have not. And my husband is a Minnesotan, so I'm a Wisconsinite at heart, but have lived in Minnesota for the past decade, at least the past decade. But no, and he, even as a Minnesotan, he does not love the Juicy Lucy. He believes when you bite into it, the cheese in the middle is way too hot and it falls out. But maybe he has never found the right one. Maybe we need to go together.
Well, my favorite one is Blue Door Pub. And they've got amazing Juicy Lucy's. But, I get that the cheese in the middle sometimes freaks people out.
Well, we're going to go to the Blue Door and we're going to try it. I will report back to you. And then if you ever make it back to Minnesota, I will meet you at the Blue Door and it will be my treat.
Thank- All right. Well, thank you, Kristen, for joining us and giving us some insight today. This has been another Lawyer Interviews, and we would love if you would subscribe and keep watching. Thanks so much.
Thank you.